Well, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of Cardboard Time. I am Arwen.
This is Justin.
Justin, it's been a little bit since we talked. Happy New Year.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. Gonna start work again soon.
It's 2021. We survived. That's impressive. Today's beer of the day is Warped Wing Lagerstadt Oktoberfest Lager. That's a mouthful. For sure.
I always enjoy an Oktoberfest. I suppose it is afternoon. I should get myself something. Hold on.
Well, while Justin is going to get that, I will describe what I am having. The Lagerstadt is very smooth. It does have a little bit of sweetness to it, a little hint of honey, and on the back end there's just a touch of almond. Very good. I mean, it's very drinkable, smooth. It's something that I could sit around at 5.5% and just kind of, sit back and have a couple, play some games. On Untapped, I actually gave it a 4 out of 5. It's something that I might get some more of. It's a local brewery in Dayton, so a few hours down the road, and on the side of it, it says Dayton, O, not Ohio. I guess it's Ohio's okay. Just now O for the, even on their logo, it says Dayton, O, so maybe there's a story there. There's probably some sort of weird story. Justin, what are you having?
So, what did I grab? I grabbed Trail Haze from 6 Point. I don't know what haze means, even though I've gone down the dark path of IPAs lately.
Usually I associate haze with the talk of dank IPAs and such, so I'm wondering if that's...
Most things that claim to be hazy that I've had, I think I've enjoyed, and yet I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure myself.
This one's not impressing me. It's coming in pretty low on flavor, and that might just be at the expense of my burnout taste buds from IPAs. I don't know.
Yeah, you've been chasing the hop dragon a little bit too much lately, maybe.
Apparently.
I'm wondering.
Yeah, this is. I'm not getting much out of this. I'm sorry to say.
This Warped Wing came from someplace that you finally got to go to that I've been talking up a lot. And for anybody listening out there that finds themselves in the Cincinnati area, Jungle Jim's is the best grocery store that I've ever been to in my entire life.
Oh, that was a treat. Yes, we finally made it on our last road trip coming back from Atlanta, I believe. So, yeah, that was a treat. Beer is a small part of it. The international market is what you go for. Wow, that is fun.
Beer is an incredibly small portion of it, although... Before COVID hit, we went a couple of times, and the highlight was really going to get a couple of beers on tap. You would get your first beer, and they're pretty cheap. I think pints were like $4 or $5 a piece.
Wow.
And they gave you them in a little solo cup. So the first one you'd probably be looking forward to, drink down. And then your second one is what you would walk around the market with. I'm pretty sure that they did that on purpose, because after you do that, you're probably going in with a relatively empty stomach, and you are just buying everything that they have.
It's a great way to do it. Yeah, they didn't have that going on, not that I was aware of.
No, unfortunately, they've shut that down. So I'm hoping that this year they're going to bring that back, and we'll be able to make a nice little road trip down there.
So I suppose since you bring up Jungle Jim's, I got this at a place in Allentown, Pennsylvania called Shangy's. Shangy's? I don't know how to say it. I didn't ask them. But they claim to have 4,000 different beers there. I spent quite some time, picked out pretty good selection of things.
That is pretty impressive.
Yes, that was a fun stop.
I saw you sending pictures from there, and it definitely looks like, along with Yako's hot dogs, it might be...
I didn't get a stop at Yoko's hot dog.
That's unfortunate, because I have been out there once. I was definitely too young to drink at the time, but we went out there to go to Dorney Park. Unfortunately, I don't think that place was out there, or it was even on my radar because I couldn't drink yet. So I think now that would be one of the things that I would look forward to if I were to make my way out to that area again.
Is beer and hot dogs. Yeah, Yoko's didn't hit the minimum requirement for, fine holiday dining. So,
I beg to disagree with that.
well, I wasn't making the choice either. So,
That's very true. Sometimes you have to consider your significant other in those choices.
as in 100% of the time.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, I've heard that this is a board game podcast.
Yeah, we keep saying that, but,
Yeah.
we get started on some other topics, and that brings up other things. So let's talk about board games and board game adjacent items. My count update for the end of the year, I promised that I was going to give you an update, and I did hit my stretch goal of being down to 190 unplayed games at the end of 2020.
So that's why you were hitting me up on New Year's Eve to play something.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
I
that is exactly why.
It was like an urgent, I need to play this game right now.
Yes. I definitely needed to get a couple of things in. I'm pretty proud of myself for being able to get down to that. I believe that I started the year at around 270 unplayed games. So,
Jeez. And of course, that margin has increased too because you have continued to buy things.
yes, that's kind of constantly push itself up and come back down and push itself up a little bit and then come back down. So it's been a lot of ebbs and flows, but net positive.
190 unplayed is still larger than my entire collection by probably many times.
A lot of quick and online games that I was able to get out, a couple of solo modes I was able to count. So those are, when I play a solo mode, I don't usually judge the game solely based on that. If I have a wonderful time with the solo mode, then I'll obviously keep it around just for that. But if I don't have the world's greatest time with it and I think, well, the game didn't really appeal to me, I'll at least save it until I'm able to play it with some other people.
Someday. Yeah.
Someday.
But you get a good sense of the mechanics and either way, so you got a pretty good idea if you're going to like it, but it's good to give it that second chance.
Well, and the other great thing is the fact that for most of our games, I wind up teaching. I'm able to, like you said, get a grasp of the mechanics, and then I'm able to translate that into teaching other people how to play it.
We're quite spoiled. I rarely watch a video unless you make me, so...
Well, or unless we're going to play Tzolk'in, which we'll get to in a minute.
That still did not help.
It still didn't help.
It helped a tiny bit. I'm like, okay, I'm out of my league here.
Well, speaking of what we've been playing, the first game that I wanted to talk about was something that made my top 12 games of the year list on the last podcast and on my Instagram, and that is Rococo. Rococo plays from 1 to 5 players in 60 to 120 minutes. It was designed by Matthias Kramer, Stefan Maltz, and Luis Maltz. It was published by Eagle Griffin Games originally in 2013, but one of the reasons that we're talking about it now is that a deluxe edition was released in 2020, which is now on my shelves.
So the funny thing is that we had to play it online to justify you getting the deluxe edition.
It was what we call an investment, and I think we did the right thing by playing it online first and making sure that it was worth it.
I always think we did the right thing when I make you buy a game.
Yes, absolutely. I went in hoping that you were going to talk me out of it. Not that you really ever
I often do that, yeah.
But there have been times that we've gone in and we've looked at the game and we said, you know what, I don't think this is really for us.
I think when at a first glance we thought that this would be a game that you have half a dozen others that at least would be comparable and therefore don't need, as I'm sure you'll get to here.
As we'll discuss for sure. But in Rococo, players are running a fancy clothing business in the Rococo era where everyone is looking for a dress or a coat for the biggest ball of the year. Because you're wanting to outdo the other businesses, the other players basically, you want to make sure that your dresses are prominently on display at the ball by renting them to customers, and that you've helped fund decor, fireworks, and musicians to play. So you're trying to basically outstage your other opponents or these other businesses. To do that, players are going to utilize deck building to manage their employees in order to do tasks like buying resources, manufacturing coats and dresses. and investing in the ball's decor, or even hiring new employees. Every employee has certain bonuses that they grant, but the interesting thing is not every employee is qualified for certain tasks. So you have 3 different levels of employees, and your lower level employees can't do certain things like making garments or hiring new employees. You have to employ really, really solid deck management in order to be successful in navigating the 7 rounds where you're preparing for this big ball. After the 7 rounds, you score everything, and it's just a very interesting game. Like Justin said, I was really on the fence about investing in the deluxe edition, so we hopped on Tabletop Simulator to play the older edition. Justin, I got to know your thoughts on this.
And I really intended to come into this saying, oh, I'll help talk you out of it, right? Because you showed me what it was about. Once we got through it, it's like, nope, this is unique. It stands on its own, and it was really fun to play. I really like the deck building mechanic. It's different than a lot of deck builders, and and it's only part of the game too. But yeah, it's just a nice mix. It's fun. It was really good, and I think it'd be even better in person because we just played it online, right? I think we mentioned multiple times. It's like, boy, I wish I had this in my hand or all in front of me so I could see it. The fact that it was that good online that convinced you to buy the deluxe edition, I'm really looking forward to playing the real thing.
To warrant the investment that I put into it, it had to be something special because the deluxe edition was not cheap. It was the typical Eagle Griffin big box games. They're running 100 plus. I was able to get a very good deal on it through my friendly local game store, the Game & Goat, which we've talked about a couple of times on the podcast. This was a grail game for me for years. I heard plenty of people talking about it. I knew that it was going to be good, but like Justin said, at first glance, it's like, okay, well,
how good could it be, right? Yeah.
Yeah, area control. Okay, that's great. But really getting into it and getting into the mechanics, everything just feels unique in a way. While they're not necessarily unique on the surface, once you get into the game and you start seeing how the mechanics work, it really is something unique.
Oh yeah, it plays well together. All those.
Yeah, everything interlocks
I get tired of saying
very
the
well.
word mechanics over and over, but
well, just everything interlocks very well.
Yes,
and meshes together extremely well.
I would really like to play it a few more times and try different paths, and see where it gets me to, because there's a lot of ways you could go.
Yeah, I think you went for more of a heavy decoration strategy. I wound up trying to put as many dresses as possible into the ball.
You controlled your deck a little better than mine, but I think I'd want to focus on the deck more next time. Yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of ways to do it.
There's ways to even build your deck up super big and capitalize on that as well through different employees that you get later. The game's heavy. I'm not going to lie. It's not a light game, but it is teachable.
It's not the worst, though, either. I mean, I think it's reasonable once you can get it out in front of you to teach someone to play it.
Yes, and I think having it, like you said, out in front of you is going to be a lot easier to teach than doing everything on Tabletop Simulator. And Phil and I even talked about that, I believe, on the last podcast, that we're starting to see that Tabletop Simulator is great, but there are certain things that it can't really do well. That is a huge one, not being able to teach all that well and have the components that you can just go and say, okay, well, say on my turn I do this, and you just have the components, you play a couple of cards, you move a couple of things around. The tactile feel that you get when you're giving those examples doesn't exist on Tabletop Sim. So I think that this is something that I would highly recommend, that you have that board in front of you and those components in front of you to teach.
Yes, there would be an advantage to that for sure. We've felt it when we were playing online.
One of the issues that we ran into was the iconography. It is a little bit much to get used to at first. Fortunately, in the deluxe edition, there is a very nice reference. It's just a sheet that you can pass around. There's 2 of them in there, so you can share. I really appreciated that because I found that my biggest hurdle with the game was knowing what each of the cards did.
Once you figured it out, though, it wasn't too bad.
I think once we got through the 3rd round, I think we knew pretty much when cards came out, you were going, okay, so this does this, this does this, this does this. So we went through all the cards in each round and just said, these are what these different things do. And by the 3rd round, we were able to just kind of go.
That's from a teaching standpoint. From a playability, if this is going to be a long-term game in your collection, once you play this 5+ times, that iconography is going to speed things up greatly because it does make sense once you know what it's telling you. And so if this becomes a major game for you, you're going to love it. It's going to be great. It's just the learning was a little bit of a curve.
It's an incredibly well-themed game. The theme is going to turn some people off. They're going to look at it and say, well, it's dresses in the Rococo era or whatever. I could care less about this. But the theme works so well. Everything from certain workers can't hire other workers. That makes sense. Very low-level apprentice workers can't make dresses. They're not skilled enough to do that. The fireworks, I think, are the best example of that because once you fund fireworks, you're basically sponsoring them, and then you're getting a front row seat at the fireworks, essentially, for your dresses that you've rented out. The benefit to having somebody at the fireworks is you get a multiplier on the value of your dress. So if you have a 4-point or a 3-point dress, you can multiply that by 2 or even 3, which as somebody that's trying to get prestige and interest in their craft, you're going to want to put those best creations up on display. So the little things really did make sense, and it was super well themed. I really appreciated that.
I don't usually like to be nitpicky, but will often point out when something doesn't make sense from a theme perspective, right? And I don't remember having that discussion whatsoever when we were playing. Like,
No.
oh, why does this person do that? I don't get it. Whatever, that didn't come up. It's well themed. It's a gorgeous game. Even the basic edition is not bad. So, I mean, just for everyone out there listening, there's nothing wrong with it. Everything's understandable. Components still looked good. Yeah, we played it online, but I mean, they still looked good, right? And the theme's nice. And again, I think this being a little heavier game, I think we still got a chance to get our mutual SOs to try it out as well, right? Because of the theme.
I think it's something that's a very accessible theme, especially when it comes to, women gamers like myself. It's nice to see something, and that's even something that I got the deluxe edition. I played the solo mode, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. I brought Allie down once I had it all set up, and I'm playing the solo mode, and she looked at it and she said, A, this is an incredibly beautiful game. It's visually captivating. And then B, she said, this is a theme that you don't see explored at all, and you don't see something that's really accessible like this to women gamers. I think that's a really nice thing. It's something that, like you said, I think you can get your significant other to the table a lot easier because of that.
And again, neither of ours are heavy gamers, right?
No,
So by
exactly.
any means, I think this is one that we got a chance with.
The deluxe edition, you haven't seen it in person yet, but
No.
It has gorgeous components. It blew my mind how good the components were on it. The cards are very, very good. The thimbles are little miniature thimbles. The lace is polyacrylic little lace things. They're just small little details. The metal coins are always welcome, obviously. The only gripe that I have with it is the insert is a little bit confusing when you're trying to punch everything out, and having a diagram in the box to say this is how we designed this and this is how we intended you to use this design would have been extremely welcome. There was somebody on BGG that was one of the designers of the insert that worked on the game, and they said, well, this is how we envisioned this. And we said, well, that's great. Thank you for putting that up because now we can use it. And it does make sense once you kind of understand, okay, this is what they were going for. But It was just having that information and having to seek it out was a little bit difficult, and that was the only disappointing thing that I thought could have been included with this edition. The solo mode is wonderful. It is a huge challenge. It interfered with my plans a lot and really heavily outscored me, but I also learned a lot about the game because of it, and I would not hesitate to get this game out again and play it solo. Very straightforward. Again, the iconography is something that took a little bit of time to get used to, but once you did, it just played very quickly. You understood, okay, I have to do this, this, and this, and then I'm on with my turn again, which is incredibly important because you have to remember what you're doing, and if you forget that, it tends to be problematic. One thing that I do need to do on my next playthrough is incorporate the jewelry box expansion. That includes some brand new employees. You can actually upgrade and train your workers so that your lower level apprentices now become journeymen and masters as well. And your jewelry that you put on the dresses, if it matches, gives you additional bonuses and different point opportunities, which is always welcome. I've heard multiple people say that it's a must-have expansion, and it changes the game for the better. I want to host a fancy dress night where dress up nice, maybe not period costume, obviously, because we don't really have that, but just dress up, have some fancy food, nice music, and play a game of this. I think it would be really thematic. This is a game that deserves that, and it really, I can't say enough good things about this. It's a wonderful game. I've told multiple people that it is well worth the money as an investment if you are looking to build your collection around some nicer games and some more deluxe games. This is one that you really can't go wrong with.
If I have to get dressed up to play your fancy Rococo, then I suppose I can do it.
I'm not saying that you have to. I'm just saying that I would like to host one of those nights because I think that this game definitely deserves it. So that is Rococo. And the next game that's on our list.
So we played Kingdom Builder, and that's from 2011. 2 to 4 players, about 45 minutes. I'd say that's about accurate. Designed by Donald X. Vaccarino.
And if that name is familiar to anybody, that's because Donald X designed Dominion, which is just, a little indie game that nobody's heard of.
Might explain some of the quality I felt when playing it. I don't know. Let's see. So this is published by Queen Games. It's a map that you're building your kingdoms on, and you're setting up little settlement on this map. To score the most points, you have 3 scoring conditions in addition to a basic scoring condition that's in every game. And you're trying to match these 3 conditions better than the other players to get the most victory points or gold. On a turn, each player draws 1 terrain card, meaning they have to play on that terrain type of 5 different terrain type. You also have to play adjacent to stuff you have already played if possible, and if you can't, then you get to expand out elsewhere. The extra nice thing with it was by playing next to certain buildings, you can get permanent actions that you get to play once every turn that come around, in addition to your regular move. So that was a lot of fun. The game ends when somebody runs out of settlements to place, and everybody gets an even number of turns. You have first player marker, and you play out the rest of the round, and then you score up the 3+1 basic conditions, and person with the most gold wins. What do you think about it?
This game I first played at a place called the Malta Meeple. It's a local board game cafe here in Akron. It was a Queen Games demo day. So one of the representatives from Queen Games came and did some demos. Actually, I got my copy of Escape because I won it from there, because I won my first playthrough of Kingdom Builder. It was a fun time. I wish we were able to do that a little bit more, but right now, obviously, that's out. Game's from 2011, celebrating 10 years this year. So it is an older design. Very simple and easy to learn rule set. It's really as simple and straightforward as you said. Flip over a card you have to build there. If you can build adjacent, do it, and then use your special abilities, pass on to the next player. The problem is that something that is that simple can lead to some problems, and I'll get to that in a minute. I will say that the theme is kind of lacking. I don't know if you necessarily need a huge amount of theme in this game, but it is something that could very easily just as well be an abstract game where you're just placing pegs on a board and have it be the same thing.
That's true. I wouldn't say the theme is lacking. I would say the theme is light because the game is light.
Yeah, it's not super integral to what you're doing.
Yeah, that is true. But I was happy the theme was there. It didn't hurt anything.
It just doesn't add much to it.
No, that is true.
For some players, they might be bothered by the potential to very quickly block opponents out of getting some important buildings.
It's true. I learned that the second round.
So I very quickly surrounded a building so that nobody else could have access to it.
And then I did that to 2 other buildings once I realized that was a thing.
Yep, Justin wound up doing it too. So I know that is a problem for some people. They get kind of upset with that. So that is something to kind of keep in mind if you're going and interested in this game. I found, again, kind of getting back to the single card draw where you are forced to play on the card that you draw and forced to play on that terrain type. It bothers a lot of people because of the randomness that creates. I find, and we discussed this yesterday, that the game is more about making the best out of what you have instead of having that preference of being able to play wherever you want.
I would say occasionally it could probably really ruin it for you, but I would think not the majority of times. You just can't expect to get your perfect move each round.
Correct. And you really just have to kind of adapt and say, okay, first of all, get a good start. So kind of pick a building, and this is where I think it's really important. Pick a building or, a set of buildings that you're able to build next to right away so that you get that special action, and then you're able to use that special action to more tailor the game to the way that you want it. So you're able to move those settlements, you're able to go in and change a couple of things on the board so that you're able to adapt a lot easier. That way you do get some control over it. Carcassonne is also something, it's a favorite of yours, and it's the same thing. The base game, you have that pick up a tile, place it. Pick up a tile, place it. There is some of the randomness that you can lose by playing a very popular variant where you're drawing 2 to 3, you form a hand, you have that hand, you're able to place that one and draw up to the next.
They have that with this game. Does some people play that? I gotta admit, I think that would take away some of the fun. That's just me.
It depends on your play style, I think. If you want to reduce some of that quote-unquote randomness that comes with this, I think that's certainly an option that you can do, but I don't feel that it's necessary. I think that the game kind of stands alone without it. And then the last thing is there's a lot of replayability just due to the random board creation. The game comes with 8 different tiles that you can shuffle up and put in different combinations, so there's a lot of replayability there. And then 10 different scoring conditions that are random. You choose 3 out of those. I just shuffle everything up, put 3 out, and that's what you got to go to. So it's a great little kind of light game. It's not going to be the most intense, heavy game that you've played. It's not going to be something that's what I would consider a masterpiece, but I enjoyed playing it. And even after all these years, playing it in 2017, you picked up a copy for me on sale.
I don't know how long ago either. Very early in the hobby, in us getting into the hobby, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was right around that 2017 timeframe. Going in and looking back at it, it's still something that I'd bring out every once in a while, especially with a lighter crowd that I'm looking to kind of broaden their horizons a little bit. This isn't a bad option.
Like I said, when I picked this up for you way back, I came into playing this, yesterday? I think we finally played it. Or I finally played it. I came into this thinking, okay, by now, you've probably found a handful of games that would beat this out anytime. So let's just play it again and see where it stands now. It came out okay. Once again, just like with Rococo, didn't compare to anything directly so much that I'd say get rid of it, right? We had a fun time playing it. It was unique enough. The way I described the rules probably seemed a bit like weird to you because that's what it sounded like to me when you were describing it. But once you sit down and you actually play it, it's like, okay, I see what's going on and this makes sense. And it's a really unique game. So it's easy to play, easy to teach. It was also very fast. But I will say this one, again, we played online. I think there was a bit of an advantage to that. On Board Game Arena, right? I think there's an advantage to that because it helped you by showing you, oh, this is your available places to play. So you didn't have to spend as much time scanning the board and making everybody else wait for you. To figure out, am I getting everything, am I maximizing my turn, or do I know I'm not missing anything, right? So I actually think that was advantageous to play it online.
I will absolutely agree with you on that. This morning, I actually wound up seeing a solo variant online, needed a picture for my Instagram, so I set it up and played this very quick solo variant where you control where the other players are going to place their stuff. So as long as it's valid, you can place any of their settlements wherever. So you're trying to prevent them from scoring points. And you compare your points to the sum of their points.
Oh.
As long as it's on the designated terrain type and it follows the same rules of adjacency, as long as you fulfill those, you can place it wherever you want. Is a really interesting way of playing it. I think that I might try that again, but I absolutely agree going back and playing this, it benefits greatly from Board Game Arena's implementation of it because you're able to very quickly see where you can place. Your points are automatically calculated. They're displayed there for you if you want them. I will definitely agree with you on that point.
Yeah. So we don't say that often, but I will say because of that, now that we're playing everything online and not in person, we have another light gaming group that gets together online every now and then. And so far we've only been playing Catan, which getting kind of bored with. And I think this is what I'm going to try to launch with that group. One, because again, it helps the unfamiliar player know what their actions can be and what their moves are. So it's just easier to play, and it played really quick that way. So I think online you can definitely play it faster than you can on tabletop, and we could probably get a game done in 20 minutes, I would think. We played a few rounds.
Yeah, especially depending on your player count. The lower player counts, I think you can whiz through like nobody's business. I'd say 15 minutes tops. 4 players, you might be up to the 25 to 30 minute mark, but especially if you get a couple of tiles in a player's hand that wind up being able to place more settlements in addition to the settlements that you have, I think that it could go very, very fast.
So that said, I don't see any reason this game needs to be limited to 4 players either. I wonder if we can look on the online one if they have the ability to expand that or not, because it would be nice with a little bit bigger group. You'd have more downtime waiting for each other's turns to come around. Could always have a bigger board. It's got all those extra components, right? I wonder if 4 players is just because it came with 4 colors of tokens. I don't know if there's really a hard limit on players or not.
Yeah, we played with 3, and I don't know how much past 4 would start causing some problems with really heavy, I can't really play anything.
Getting in everybody's way. Well, I think if you added 2 boards for 5 and 6 players, I think you'd be just fine. That's just my thought. Well, we're getting pretty hypothetical here, but I would say that's the one gripe I have. Now that I know I can play this quick and easy online, we've got a group of 5 at minimum that would like to play it, I think. But that said, yes, I'm going to try to replace Catan in our light gaming group with this one, so I think that's a win.
I would definitely agree with that. I think it's a great little, very light game, and it's something that you can get a couple of rounds out pretty quickly. It's not leaving my shelves anytime soon. I don't have the gripes that a lot of people do on the internet with it. I can understand what they're saying, but I also understand what the game is. And it's not a super heavy game, it's a lighter game, and I am absolutely fine with that. That is Kingdom Builder. Well, going from very light to significantly heavier, a game that came out a year later is Tzolk'in, the Mayan calendar.
That's that old? Wow.
It is. I think that's kind of a testament to the game itself, how old it is and how well it's held up. 2 to 4 players, plays in about 90 minutes, designed by Simone Luciani and Danielle Tassini, and published by CGE. In Tzolk'in, players are going to place workers on one of 5 gears, connected to a central gear. Once around, that central gear turns a click, and those workers wind up advancing on a track. Once you pick up your workers, so on a turn, you can either place workers or you can take them off of the gears. Once you take the workers off the gears, you get an action corresponding to that. You have different temple tracks, which will score you points. You have different technology tracks, which will help you advance on temple tracks and make your life easier in general. And then you have buildings that you can build using resources that you're going to get on the gears. Once the central gear completes a full rotation, the game is over, you do your final scoring, and the person with the most points wins. Justin, this was your first time playing Tzolk'in. What did you think?
It's a super slick game. Well, maybe not slick is the word for it. Very clever. I mean, and I love, and this is another one where the theme and the gameplay kind of lock together. I mean, it's got great mechanics, and it's not even just the mechanics of the game, it's the physical mechanics of the game board, the gear mechanism that just works so well. It's amazing. And then they fit that to the theme of the Mayan calendar and all of that. It's quite amazing. I'm super impressed. And that's why I'm surprised it's so old, because so old, less than 10 years, but that's how this hobby goes right now, right? Just that's such an amazing mechanic, and it works seamlessly, I would say. Just to kind of clarify on some of the aspects of the gameplay, like the longer you can ride out on those gears, the better the rewards you get for picking up your workers. But you got to balance that with having enough workers to do the things you need to do, right? So I found myself pulling them off way too early all the time. There's so much going on. It's a very clever game and lots of directions to go. Like you said, there's 5 main gears, so 5 main actions, but there's a lot going on the side. It is very heavy. And even after doing a full playthrough, when we play this again, I'm not sure what I'm going to do better yet. I have a lot more to learn about that game. So this is not for the light of heart. That was a tough playthrough. Even knowing the rules, we watched a video, you explained some stuff to me. I'm going to have to learn a lot more about that game. But it's not stopping me. I still want to, because that was fun. That was a bit rough. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next time to win.
It is a very intense game. And like you said, there's a lot to really wrap your head around and try to comprehend and understand how everything is interlocking. This was my second playthrough of it. Unfortunately, I've played one time solo, and I played with you guys last night.
Well, you picked it up a lot faster than I did, apparently.
I had some mistakes I made the first game that I correct. I think in a couple of ways I overcompensated. This is another game where it's worker placement. You have to feed your workers every once in a while because they have to eat. Corn drives everything.
More corn.
More corn, please. You have to have corn for everything that you do with your workers. So anytime that you feed your workers, you have to have corn. Anytime that you place them on a wheel, as long as you can place them in the first space on that gear, it's free. But if you place more workers, which you can do in a round, but you're going to pay corn. If you place them further along the gears, if there's people that are stopping you from placing in that first space, you can place them on later spaces, but that requires more corn. So corn is central to everything that you can do. So having that corn engine that you're just generating it, you're able to get extra anytime that you pull workers off those gears.
There's
really
no easy
beneficial.
way to do that.
No, there's not. I think that's where the technology tracks really kind of provide a nice benefit, because anytime that you get corn off that board, you're able to get another one. On the later version of that track, you can get up to 3 additional corn anytime that you get on that space. So you're able to just get on that track, get your corn, and then go on the other tracks and do whatever you're going to do to score points. Corn isn't going to score you hardly anything at the end of the game, so you really want to use it as a resource to drive your engine. I didn't go very building heavy this time. I think I went building heavy last time, and I went more for the track on the bottom that was involved with placing skulls. You get a high reward on that track for victory
Crystal
points.
skulls.
You get these crystal skulls, you place them. Very nice components, by the way, especially for 2012. I thought that those skulls were so cool.
Way better than that movie with the crystal skulls.
Yes, and anything was better than that. Like Justin said, there's different paths to victory, and it is something that does require a little bit of understanding how the different mechanics of the game physically to interact, and some definite forethought. It's a little bit of a brain burner. It's one of the heavier worker placement games I own by far, because you're always
a lot to manage.
Well, and you're always having to either place a worker or pull one off. So if you've placed all your workers, even if you want to let them ride further, can't. You have to at least take one of them off.
Ran into that a few times. Seemed like a good idea. It's like, hey, let's place all these guys. This is a great idea. Get them out there. And then find out that, I'm going to have to do something about it.
So at the very least, the timing of everything is also important when you place what. So that takes a little bit of cognition too to understand, okay, well, if I'm placing this round, I want to pull next round so I can optimize what I'm doing. So there's a ton of things that you really have to think about.
And that said, that would be much better to play with the physical board in front of you to be able to keep
Absolutely.
track of everything. It was a little limited on the digital version.
Yes, the digital version on Board Game Arena is very small. You can hover over things and you can see what they do, but, that kind of takes you out of things. Whereas opposed to the tabletop version, you're very easily able to see, okay, this space is going to provide me this. So I know I'm counting spaces out. I'm very easily able to see in my head, this is what I have to do, and this is when I have to do it.
And not to say that the digital version, anything really wrong with it, other than that board was shrunk down quite a bit because it's such a big board. But it's just something you need to have that stuff in front of you to process it all, I think.
Yeah, even on a 27-inch monitor, that board was tiny online. It was absolutely tiny.
Which that reminds me of one more weakness with it. This is a heavy game. This is not for light gamers. We played it with a friend who's not into the heavy games as much, and you kind of got this kind of give up reaction, right? It's like, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to place my guys, and then it's your turn, kind of thing. Sadly, so this is a heavy game for heavy gamers.
That is Tzolk'in, the Mayan calendar. And coming up next, we have a very short Kickstarter Corner segment. We'll see you in a couple. And we are back with Kickstarter Corner. Well, unfortunately, with A, the Postal Service being the way that it is, and B, the delays that are being encountered at ports and in shipping, I still don't really have much to talk about on Kickstarter Corner this week, which I think is fine because we had a very nice segment on what we've been playing.
I wonder if this is a nationwide thing with the Postal Service or just our area, because we've gotten quite a bit of late stuff too.
My parents sent me a package on the 16th and it arrived on the 2nd of January. I know that they've been flooded with things, but that was kind of egregious. Obviously, it's not really safe for them to drive the package down, and it wasn't really safe for me to go and pick it up, but it was something that I looked at and I'm like, you guys haven't moved this, but there's just so much volume that's been processing through those centers.
Yeah, I'm not really holding it against them. I'm just kind of wondering. I imagine that if nothing else, they burned all their overtime during the election or something. So
I'm sure there's multiple problems that are contributing to that. So, Which is unfortunate because we're waiting for stuff. I don't think anything that I've been waiting on really got held up in that Christmas kind of rush. It was mostly due to the delays at ports. There's been an unprecedented volume with everything coming across on boats, with the increase in Kickstarter traffic, everybody trying to ship things out, whether it's loading things onto boats or whether it's processing them through the ports on the other end. There's a lot of delays that are happening now on Kickstarter games. I've mentioned that briefly before, but it is still something that's really holding things up quite a bit. I do know that there have been some boats that have landed, some shipments that have been unloaded for a couple of the games that I have on the way. So hopefully soon we will be seeing some of those games. We'll get them to the table and we will have some reviews on here for you. I do want to talk about 2 Kickstarters that came in for board game adjacent items. One was a order that I placed for Ludo Cherry skirts. They were doing board game themed skirts and nice button down shirts. I had placed an order when they had the Kickstarter a little while ago. I initially just backed for 1, wound up backing for 2. They were about $60 a piece, but they are having them in person. They are very sturdy fabric. I really like them. They're very comfortable. They have pockets, which is huge. I'm able to go and walk around with my phone in my pocket, which is awesome. So I'm just able to maneuver around the house. And if I only have a couple of things, I don't have to carry a purse around. I can just throw a couple things in the pocket. And they are super comfortable. The elastic waistband in them was very helpful during the holiday season. I've got a couple of pounds to take off after that. But they also have some very, very nice designs. I wound up buying two of them. One was a kind of cream color with some flowers, and inside the center of the flowers are little meeples. And then the other one was a black design with red cherries, and in place of the cherries, you have some D20s. So they're really cute designs. They're very easy to pass off as just regular skirts until you look really close, and then you get to see the details on them. So I thought that they did a really good job with it. They are up on the Board Game Geek store. They are going to be somewhat more expensive. I think they're running at $80 instead of $60 up on there. But if you're looking for something that's really high quality, you really can't go wrong with these. I'm really enjoying mine. I'm looking for more opportunities to wear them. And if they ever do another Kickstarter, I'm probably going to wind up investing in one or two more because I really like them. The other Kickstarter that came in was shirts from Mr. Meeple. I believe they are a Polish company. Multiple really good designs. Take off on the design that was posted online that's very popular with a meeple shape that has a bunch of board games, the words of the titles of the board games that make up the shape of the meeple. That one's really cute. And then the other one that I got was a shirt that is kind of almost Russian USSR theme that says worker placement on it, just kind of evokes that old 50s and 60s Russian propaganda theme. I thought that was a really cool design. And as a worker placement fan, you can't go wrong with that. Plenty of really good nerdy designs. I do believe that they have a web store that's open that you can get some designs from as well. I will say that the women's sizes definitely tended towards the smaller size. Again, that could be the holiday food talking, but that is something to kind of keep in mind as you're ordering. They may run a little bit small. I don't know about the unisex sizes, but that is something to kind of keep as a consideration. Short segment this week, unfortunately, but I am hoping that we have some more preview content and some more Kickstarter news kind of coming up in the new year. So the next thing that we're going to talk about after the break is looking forward to 2021 and what our goals are. So stick around. And we're back. In the last episode, kind of looked back at 2020 and some of the accomplishments that I had. And now the only thing that's left to do is to look forward to 2021 and what we would like to get accomplished during the new year. I know that this whole show has been built off the premise of reducing my unplayed game collection and talking about it. So it should come as no surprise that one of my goals for the end of next year is to reduce that count. Like I said at the top of the show, I ended last year at 190 unplayed games. I think this might be a little bit of an ambitious goal, but I'm really looking to make that 100 games by the end of 2021. I think the difficulty is going to depend a lot on the recovery from the pandemic and how quickly we can wind up getting together. I am starting to run out of solo modes to play. I'm looking on BGG for different solo modes for different games. So I still have some, but it would really help if we're able to gather and play in each other's homes once again.
Not running out of online versions or decent tabletop sim ones.
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Unfortunately, it's been kind of a constraint. And like we said when we were talking a little bit earlier, it's getting more and more difficult to teach those very, very heavy games online. So even if they do have an online adaptation, learning it gets to be kind of the constraint without being able to put it out in front of you at the table. One of the other things I'm going to do on my Instagram, I actually mentioned this, that I got a calendar for Christmas that my girlfriend bought me, which was very nice. It has some art that's constructed of different board game components, and that is making the shape of different popular board game art. So this month's inspiration was from Tang Garden, a very pretty game. It's an island with a little waterfall and some trees, and they're all made out of board game components. They're really, really cute. At the end of that calendar, there's also an addition, what they call a 10 by 10 challenge. So that means picking 10 games and playing them 10 times. And it includes spots for different colored stickers. So I decided to give that a try. I've been holding off because my focus has been more on the unplayed games, but noting that we've discussed kind of more and more that going back to some of the older games, I'm really enjoying them. And there's a reason that those games are still in my collection. I want to do a deeper dive into some of my other games and add the expansion content.
Just looking at your list and saying you picked quite a heavy 10 by 10. Good luck getting to 100 unplayed games.
I
by the end of the
did.
year.
Yeah. Those games include Bonfire, Calico, Concordia, Dice Throne Adventures, which I'm hoping is going to be in the mail this month because I'm really, really looking forward to that. Great Western Trail, my number one new to me from last year. Orleans, Rococo, Thunderstone Quest, Tidal Blades, and Warp's Edge. So I think Warp's Edge is probably going to be the easiest one to get out to the table other than Calico. The other ones are going to be quite heavy, but they're games I really want to explore. I want to explore the different strategies and, like I said, different expansions I have for some of them.
Some of my favorites are in there.
Well, I'm hoping that you can help with that, but again, that kind of gets back to the whole when are we going to be able to be back in person gaming? I'm hoping that new games don't get too heavily in the way, but I'm assuming that they're probably going to show up at the table at some point, which is my number 3 challenge, the 100 New to Me challenge. So again, with the goal for the end of the year being to get down a net 90 games from my shelf of shame to played. I think this one, if I hit the other one, should be pretty easy. But this is just kind of a standard challenge that I've done for the past 2 years, and it's really helped drive me to get that collection number down. Should be relatively easy with that first challenge, but it's also going to account for some new games coming in as well. So those are kind of my resolutions and things that I want to get done this year. I know that it is ambitious, but I think this is definitely the year to make some big progress on those games. And then who knows, 2022 might be the year if I really push for it to get that collection down on that shelf of shame to 0. I don't know. It's ambitious, but I think it's possible. So, Justin, what about you?
Well, I'm not holding out for conventions next year, so I think we'll have to aim for other things. On the new game side of thing, I'm afraid to even look because we've got way too much of a backlog, and most of it's in your games. So I hope we get back to in-person gaming because you've got a whole bunch of games that I'm salivating to try to play. I think Dune's at the top of that list. Just being a big Dune fan, I can't wait to see how that game comes out because it really looks like it's a good one too. But that said, I think my big goal this year is to get back to working on the games I'm working on. And I've got one far enough along that I think I need to get it on tabletop sim so people can start playtesting it for me. So that's my goal.
Oh, that's a great goal. And I know that you've had a couple of designs in the hopper, one that we've both worked on, and then a couple of your own that you've been working on for multiple years in pretty good state. I mean, you've put a ton of work into it, utilized a lot of playtesting feedback already, but I think getting that on tabletop sim and being able to get some blind playtests in that way, especially while we're still kind of locked down.
Yeah, it probably means I should hurry on it, huh?
I think you should. Otherwise, people are going to want to go outside pretty quick, and that might limit their time in front of the computer. We'd also like to hear what our listeners out there are planning on, what their goals are for the new year. So do you have any challenges? Do you have any major games that you want to get to the table, things that you're excited about? I know this coming year, I am very excited for a couple of things, but we'd like to hear from you as well. So make sure that you utilize our social media, our Board Game Geek page, and different avenues to kind of give us some feedback. Let us know. As far as games coming out this year, I really, again, looking forward to Dice Throne Adventures. I think that is pretty much at the top of my list for what I'm waiting on right now as far as Kickstarters go. It's something that utilizes the base game, which is a competitive, essentially Battle Yahtzee style game where you're rolling against your opponent, and it turns it into a co-op dungeon crawl with some legacy elements, but it brings a campaign in, and you're able to play cooperatively already, and there is a solo mode included as well. So I think that's going to turn something that's one of my favorites. I love Dice Throne. I think it's a well-designed game, and to be able to use those components in a cooperative sense is really, really going to be cool. I've played one round of it already on Tabletop Sim, and I'm really looking forward after that to playing some more of that. So that's probably my top game. Wonderland's War is another one that I'm really looking forward to. Project L is another game that I have gotten a game in already with Phil, and we've talked about on the show previously, but I think that's going to be a really cool game to have on hand for some of the lighter gamers, but spatially inclined. They're really going to like this. Placing Tetris pieces in those shapes, filling them out, and building an engine up that way. It's just such a cool, satisfying mechanism and plays really quick. Looking forward to getting that one too, as well as a lot of my other Kickstarters. Justin, I know you don't follow the news as much as I do about what's coming out, but anything
Somewhat
in
intentionally.
particular? Yeah.
No,
well,
I really haven't. Like I said, the games you've got waiting to be played have me more than excited enough. I'm not going to dig myself into a deeper hole. So that's somewhat intentional.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I guess I'm the one that takes that bullet, and I'm willing to do that for you guys.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to let you be that person. It saves me a lot of headache.
Lots of new things I'm excited for. Like you said, I'd love conventions to come back this year, but I'm not necessarily holding my breath for them. Gen Con is probably going to be more likely than Origins is at this point. Right now, Origins is 5 months away. You know, if it was scheduled at its normal time, so it's now January, talking June timeframe, where Gen Con's a couple months or a month after that. It's something that I'm not holding my breath, but I'm kind of hoping that I get to at least one or two this year. I do miss that camaraderie. I do miss meeting people that have the same passion and interests as we do, and being able to get to the table with them, share some stories, and share some table time with them. I'd love it, but who knows what this year is going to bring. We certainly couldn't predict last year and what it was going to bring at this point last year either. Well, I think that is about going to do it for this episode of Cardboard Time. As always, make sure to check out our Facebook page, our Instagram at cardboard_time. Plenty of awesome board game pictures almost daily on there. Our Board Game Geek podcast page. If you have any questions, suggestions, or ideas for discussion topics, please email cardboardtime@gmail.com. And as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks for another episode of Cardboard Time.